Salam alaikum. Islam Awakened opens week 21 of our Quran class and halakha. This is about hypocrisy and how it's used in the Quran and what words come near it. As always, we will open the class with Al-Fatiha. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Ar-Rahmanir Rahim. Maliki Yawmiddin. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين.
Amen.
All right, I will now turn the class over to our instructors, Dr. Aisha and Farouk Peru. Thank you.
Is Farouk on?
You're
Brother
muted if you're
Farouk,
talking.
your brother Farouk,
Yeah, sorry about that. Sorry. Um, Assalamu alaikum, peace be upon you. Um, Thank you very much, Waleed. And today we'll be looking at the term munafiq, it's usually translated as hypocrites. When I looked at the language resources, it seems to be about having it's like a tunnel, and this is actually used in the Quran as well, chapter 6, verse 35, a tunnel in which there are two openings. So you can see that this person who is like that is keeping both options open, and thus he or she is not fully committed to the cause. So the term is usually used in the setting of the messenger's movement. So the messenger has a community of people, and some of the people are mu'mineen, the believers, if you like, who are fully committed to the way. And then there are also munafiqeen, people who are not uh, fully committed to the way. And in some instances, they actually pose a detriment to the cause. So the first time the word appears is in verb form. This is in chapter 3, verse 167, and it says, وَلِيَعْلَمَ الَّذِينَ نَافَقُوا. And those who, hypocrites, but since there is no hypocrites in verb form in English, it's usually translated as just hypocrites. They were told, come fight in the way of Allah, or at least drive, in brackets, the foe from your city. They said, had we known how to fight, we would have certainly followed you. So they are making excuses for themselves. They were nearer that day to kufr, or unbelief or concealment, than to iman, conviction, saying with their lips that which was not in their hearts. And God knows well what they hid. So I would think, if you read the context of this, this is referring to the messenger's movement. Yeah, the verse 164 says, Allah did confer a favor on the believers when He sent among themselves a messenger rehearsing unto them the signs, um, sanctifying them and instructing them in Al-Kitab and Hikmah, whereas before that they were in manifest error. So at that point, you can see that's the setting. The messenger is leading them. And these people, while they are there with the messenger and his people, they are not fully committed. So this is essentially the hallmark of the munafiqeen. All right. So he has one outlet. He is to the messenger, but there is also another option out, and you will see that option manifest in other settings as well. Then we have chapter 4, verse 60, which is the first time the actual word munafiqeen appears. Previously, it was just a verb, but here the actual word appears, um, and it says, وَإِذَا قِيلَ لَهُمْ, and when it is said to them, تَعَالَوْا إِلَى مَا أَنزَلَ اللَّهُ, come to that which Allah has descended, وَإِلَى الرَّسُولِ, and to the messenger. رَأَيْتَ الْمُنَافِقِينَ, you see the munafiqeen, the hypocrites, yasudduna anka saduda, avert their faces with a double aversion. So they are not happy with the messenger's judgment. So, I mean, if we don't have the messenger's judgment in person, we will have them in the form of the Quran. So this passage actually starts with verse 59, which is a very famous verse. It says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, O ye who have believed, ati Allah, obey Allah, wa ati Rasul, and obey the messenger, wa ulil amri minkum, and those in charge among you. Fa in tanaza'tum fi shay, if you dispute amongst yourselves in anything, faraddu ilallah wa rasul. So refer it back to Allah and the Messenger. In kuntum tu'minuna billah wal yawmil akhir. If you indeed have conviction in Allah and the final day. ذَلِكَ خَيْرٌ وَأَحْسَنُ تَأْوِيلًا. This will yield the best outcome. So, and the next verse actually deals with these people. It says, have you not turned your vision to those who declare they believe in the revelations that have come to you and those before you? This is speaking to the messenger, I believe. Their wish is to resort for judgment to the Taghut. Taghut are authorities which go over and above the boundaries set by Allah. And as they were ordered to reject him. But Shaitan's wish is to lead them far, far astray. So why is Shaitan being mentioned here? I would say it's because Shaitan gives us the opposite judgment to what Allah has revealed in the Quran. So if you look at chapter 16, verse 98, it says, فَإِذَا قَرَأْتَ الْقُرْآنِ. So when you recite the Quran, فَاسْتَعِذْ بِاللَّهِ, seek refuge with Allah, min ash-shaytanir rajim, from shaitan, the one who pelts you. And that's how we get the divergence of the judgment. First, we have the judgment of Allah, which the messenger will operate on, and then we have the judgment of shaitan. And it seems that the munafiqeen, they wish for the judgment of shaitan. But let's not have a picture of some kind of a satanic like image here. That's not it. But rather, it is about being alienated, because that's what the word shaitana means, to be alienated. Shaitan is alienated from the path of Allah. And the munafiqeen, they wish to be alienated as well. They do not want to engage in the path of Allah. So I can stop here and reconvene after the discussion. Thank you.
I'm curious, Farouk, what do you make of the fact that this is a form 3 verb of the root? And I'm just really curious because the form 3 has specific kind of relationships meaning wise to the form 1 meaning. And the form 1 meaning has to do with spending, which we also see in the form 4. And given that the form 3 is either an attempt or a mutual interaction, I'm just wondering where we get the meaning, thinking about the English meaning of hypocrites and wondering why we use that, because I'm trying to figure out where the mutuality or the attempt is that's indicated by the form 3 verb.
Right. So the word you're looking for, munfiqin, that's actually mentioned in chapter 3, verse 17.
No, the
So that's
munafiq, nafaqa is a
uh,
form 3 verb, and
Dr.
munafiq is the actor that does the form 3. But so I'm just curious.
So as I was saying, Dr. Musa, if you have a look at chapter 3, verse 17, it says munfiqin. There is no alif there. That indicates receiving the instruction and obeying the instructions. Well, to me, a munafiqin, the alif there indicates that the person's will is involved. Hence, he is interacting with that, and he chooses not to fulfill the law. So that's why you're a munafiq. Basically, you're a munafiq because Allah gives you instructions and you decided to negotiate with it. That's how I would understand the form.
But is that a
Difference.
form 3? Which ayah was that? 3:17, you said?
Chapter 3, verse 17. That's a good guy, yeah? That's a good guy being mentioned there. Sabirin and munfiqin rather than munafiqin.
But munfiqin would not be, munafiq and munfiq are two different. Munfiq is a form 4, not a form 3. That's what I'm
Yes,
asking about. So they're
yes.
not, it's not the same form of the verb. So a munfiq is somebody who does anfaqa, right? Who spends in the way of God. So you've got the active participle of the form
I'm using it as
4,
a comparison, Dr. Musa. I'm using it as a comparison. I'm showing
but
you that here there is no alif there, and
right,
that person is fully.
there's no aleph because it's a different form of the verb. I don't think you're understanding my question.
Okay.
The form of the verb impacts meaning of the word, both the active participle in this case and the verb itself.
I
These
mean, I
are
gave you
two.
my understanding as to why that's the case. That's fine if you feel I'm wrong. That's
No,
fine, no
no, no.
problem.
I'm. It doesn't answer my question. My question is about the meaning of the form 3 morphology and how it interacts with the root nafaqa. Um, because
A,
I
a mun-
because where is the mutuality or the effort in nafaqa or munafiq? That's what I'm looking for is how that interacts with the idea of spending or being spent and the form. I'm trying to figure out where. Yeah, I have to look more into the English word hypocrite to see how that might overlap. I just don't see it.
for me,
Obviously,
hypocrite.
hypocrite is not a perfect translation. We either accept the instructions and follow them, or we push back. In either case, that is an interaction. That's my reading.
Okay. Okay. Because it still has to do with the idea of being spending. Maybe it's where we spend our efforts or something.
Yeah, that's my take.
But yeah, I just I yeah, and this is why translating the Quran, as we were talking about earlier, is such a big responsibility, because there are all these nuances of meaning that we need to try and grasp and do the best we can. So thank you. Yeah, I'm going to look into this more though, because now I'm really curious. Because there's a clear relationship between 317, between the way we translate it and the root and the form. I'm not seeing that same clear connection where the form 4 verb is concerned. That's all. Sorry for the confusion. I'm confused.
Oh no, I think it's a perfectly legitimate question. I just see nafaqa as the basic meaning is the two-way tunnel thing. That's the physical manifestation of the root, as per chapter
Because
6,
because
verse
because the root
25.
also means to spend, right? Anfaqa, those who spend in the way of God, right? So
But you
when
see,
does
the munafiqeen he's spending in his way. He's interacting with the message in a non-productive way, as opposed to a munfiqeen who accepts and does as he's told.
right,
That's how
because
I see it. Yeah.
a munfiq is doing the nafaqa,
Positive, yes,
whereas
indeed, yes.
right, whereas the munafiq is maybe attempting to do it but not successfully. I don't know. Again, this is where I'm really but every time I find some confusion like this in looking at the Arabic language, when I dig into it, I will inshallah learn something new, right? So it's
This is
fascinating to
just
me.
like qasitun and muqsitin, Dr. Musa. Qasitun is in an active form, and hence he is actively distributing wealth in accordance to his needs.
But
But a
munafiq,
muqsit,
right, but they're both active. Those are both active participles. They're both
yes, but
doing an
the
action.
the muqsit is doing it as per the commands of Allah. That's why Allahu yuhibbul muqsitin. You see? Whereas with the qasitun, Allah does not love them. Allah contrasts them with Muslimun. That's in chapter 70. I can't remember exactly where, but it is chapter 72. The jinn say, among us are qasitun and among us are Muslimun. So Muslimun, they accept the command of Allah. Qasitun, no, he decides to assert his own will to it, you see? So that's how I view it anyway, yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna definitely look into it more. This is fascinating to me.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to hijack the conversation.
Quite all right, yeah. Yes, so anyone else care to comment? I have half an hour, folks. I'm so sorry. I have a meeting at uh, 11. So
We can end early if need be. Sister?
any comments, folks?
The basic meaning may be tunnel, right? Nafaka,
Oh, no,
the
yes, that's right, Abdul Haq, yeah.
tunnel means both ends, right? That could be Manafik is somebody who listens from one end and takes it out on the other, right? The
Yeah,
other
could
end
be,
of the
yeah,
tunnel.
nice. Good
Yeah.
one. Mm. Mm.
So maybe the basic meaning of tunnel is something that can explain the third form of the triliteral word nafaka, and the fourth anfaka, right? So even though their meanings seem to be different, but maybe if you look at the tunnel, maybe tunnel can just can explain the difference between the two. Whether tunnel may be something that is a right in the middle of the interpretation. Uh, that so we need to find out what are the functions of a tunnel. You know, so the tunnel could be a positive passage, and that can lead from one end of the one of the area and lead it to the other on the other side of the mountain or something like that, right? So the other side would be very different. So that could explain the monafik, the part of the monafik, basically because it listens and then it kind of changes it and pushes it to the other end, and when it goes to the other end, it has a different meaning. It's a different area, right? Now, nafaka also means spending, which means you get from one end and you spend it to the other. You just take it and then distribute it. You don't keep it to yourself. So, I mean, the tunnel might be the analogy that can explain both meanings, which seemingly are opposite, or one is negative and the other is positive. Of course, spending in the way of Allah is positive, and the nifaq is a very negative thing. But if we look at the tunnel, probably we can derive both meanings.
Abdul Haq, the spending, yeah? So anfaqa, spending, is actually one of what I consider to be a key virtue in the Quran. The reason I say that is because Allah says, let's say in chapter 2, verse 254, Allah says, O ye who believe, spend out of what we provide. Yeah, أنفقوا مما رزقناكم. Before a day comes and no friendship will avail you, no intercession, no alliances, etc., etc. So the only thing you can do to save yourself is to spend. But you have to spend in the way Allah tells you to spend. So I fear that the munafiqun, they have other spending agendas which they don't disclose. And this hypocrites term, in my opinion, it came from the traditionalists. They have a certain narrative regarding the hypocrites, and so they tempered this word to fit that agenda. But as far as I can see, these people are spending in other ways. They may be spending for their own selfish needs, etc., and not spending in the way of Allah. That's how I understand. That's why I think the word is used.
Oh, yes. Spending extravagantly. That is probably israf, right?
Extravagantly, yes, but they are
Yeah.
not
But that's
necessarily
not
extravagant.
emphasized spending in the correct way. Spending in the way of
Yeah.
Allah means that where the money should go, actually. And if it's going there, then we are spending correctly, the
And
proper
you have to remember the Sunnis themselves love to quote this verse. Half of this verse. وَمَا أَتَاكُمْ رَسُولُ فَخُذُوهُ وَمَا نَهَاكُمْ رَسُولُ فَانْتَهُوا. Whatever the messenger gives you, take it, and whatever the messenger forbids you, stay away from it. Right. The
right.
reason they do that is because they say, well, this is about hadith. Actually, it's not. If you read chapter 59, verse 7, it is about distribution of wealth. So
Sure.
for those people who reject the distribution of wealth in accordance with the messenger's system, in my opinion, they would be munafiqin. Yes. Yeah.
Sure.
And I will remind everyone that Shafi, Muhammad ibn Idris Shafi, was the first person that I have ever been able to find who made the argument that 59:7 was about hadith. No one prior to Shafi I have ever found, in looking for it for decades, have I ever found anyone prior to him who made that claim. And Muslims today, well, Muslims after him accepted it, obviously, and still accept it to this day. But he died in the Hijri year of 204. So he died 204 years after the Prophet's Hijra to Mecca, if we accept the traditional dating. So it took 200 years of people interpreting the Quran for somebody to come up with this as a defense of hadith. But they use it today without even a notion of its original, of when the idea that they're using originated. Again, more than 200 years after the time of Muhammad. I just have to say it because that is their defense, always 59:7. Nobody that I can find. And if you can find somebody prior to Shafi who said it, I'm happy to look at the materials because I'm happy to consider other possibilities. But I have not been able to find anyone prior to 200 years after the time of Muhammad who ever claimed 59:7 was, defending hadith. But that's because Shafi was the great champion of hadith that gave us the hadith based the arguments that hadith followers use today.
So Shafi, that's not the only thing that he said. There's several things that he said.
He said a lot of things, but he was the first. He was
Yeah.
the first to make that particular argument.
Yeah,
So
the reason is that he was probably, he's known for expounding hadith and everything. Basically, he said that a kitab and hikmah.
yes, he was
So he
also
said,
the originator. Those two ideas, those two foundational ideas that support hadith are Shafi's ideas. not
Yeah.
earlier people. He argued that hikmah meant something other than the Quran, and he
Yeah.
argued, and I have never been able to find anyone earlier that made those two arguments, right?
So
So
he
it
also
was,
said that Darul Salam and Darul Harb. Can you imagine? He divided the whole world into two parts, Darul Islam and then Darul Harb. You know,
oh,
and
absolutely. And he agreed with the Shi'is about, Muhammad being the first light created by God. If you read Shafi'i's stuff, I really see what I consider shirk of Muhammad to be really permeating his thinking.
Well, I didn't
very,
know about that. I thought that's a bit extravagant, right? Considering Muhammad to be light. That's pretty Shi'i in its thinking. I'm surprised Shafi would have accepted that. Wow.
I was really shocked when he articulated it, but I think he articulated it even, before this, because he's very early compared to, kind of the Sunni Shi'i theology stuff. But yeah, he said that, I mean, he says somewhere in one of his works, which really shocked me, was that, God created Muhammad before he created anything else, and then he created everything for Muhammad. And I'm like, I mean, that
Oh,
really, I was like, oh my God, I can find the reference for you if you want, but I
wow.
remember being utterly shocked when I read it. It's like, wow.
No,
Um,
I'm very shocked myself, Dr. Musa. I always expected Shafi to be sober, rather than extreme Shiite sympathetic in his
well, I don't know that
arguments.
I don't know that I would go so far as to say Shiite sympathetic as I would say idolatrous of Muhammad, like really
Yeah.
putting Muhammad up there as like this, you know, the and he uses things like, the Quran says you have to love the messenger more than anybody else and things like that. But
What?
all of those ideas, he really articulated them quite clearly.
you know,
There is no such concept. I'm so sorry for distracting, but there is no such concept in the Quran. Loving the messenger is not there at all. Um, the most is aula. Aula is to be close, but not. Or ahabba, no. No, that's just not there. Yeah.
well, even if it's muhabbat, that's fine. I mean, with me, it's okay. But the thing is that the Quran calls Muhammad as a messenger,
Yeah.
messenger of Allah. Who's the messenger? Somebody who conveys the message. Now, the message, I clearly see that message that Prophet Muhammad brought was the Quran. So the
Mm.
Quran is completely, perfectly preserved. We have it. It's the same book that Muhammad himself followed. And it's the same book that we are supposed to follow. So, I mean, most of the Muslims, I'm talking about the vast majority of Muslims, they focus on the messenger, not on the message. I mean,
Mm.
that's the problem that I see, the biggest problem, basically, all over see in Pakistan. I go to YouTube, I see mullahs preaching, Jummah khutbahs all the time, basically, no matter what you're doing, they always focus on, they bring the topic, they keep bringing it back, the topic back to the Prophet Muhammad. They're focusing on his personality and what he did. I don't know what he did. The Quran tells me that he followed the Quran. He says that, I'm just like, I'm a person, I'm a bashar like you. The only difference between you and me is that I get the revelation that you don't get the revelation. So the Quran was revealed to him, and then he did the Risalah. So Nabi and Rasul, to me, is Nabi is the one who gets the news, and Risala is the one when he starts conveying that news to other people, then he is called Rasul. So Rasul is the conveyor of the message, and the Nabi is the one who actually gets the message from above heavens, right? So from the divine. And so that's the difference between, I mean, that's a very simple definition for me that I have no question about it. So to me, I don't know what Prophet Muhammad did, really. Because the Quran tells me. So whatever the Quran tells me, that's the one I know about Prophet Muhammad. So the Quran tells me that tell them that I follow what is revealed to me. And so what is revealed to him is the Quran. So we have that Quran, it's the same message. We should focus on the message more than we should focus on the messenger. I'm not saying that don't talk about the messenger at all. I'm not saying that at all, because of course, if we don't believe in the messenger, then we don't believe in the message. So since we believe in the message, we automatically believe in the messenger. However, to focus on the messenger, to me, it doesn't do me as good as focusing on the message. Thank you.
To put it in a hadith
So,
terms, that's following the Christians down the snake hole.
yes.
I see this, I discuss things on Quora all the time, and there are many, many misconceptions about Islam. And one question I've seen repeated is, why do Muslims worship the Prophet Muhammad? And I always have to quote necessary verses to say that's not what we're doing. But that idea is definitely out there. So be aware.
It is, and there are, and it's Quran 9:24 that they use to say love the messenger. It talks about if your family or your trade or the wealth you have is more beloved lakum than Allah and His messenger. That's the ayah, and I think that Shafi really tried to
It's not just the
articulate and
messenger, though,
embody that.
Dr. Musa. It's also
Right.
fighting in his cause. So that's not the personality of the messenger.
Right, but that's how they take it. The people that are arguing that you have to love the messenger, and I hear this all the time. This is why I do not go to traditional masjids, because as you were just saying earlier, and I forget your name, forgive me, but you were talking about how people always turn the khutbah to, the topic of the messenger and loving the messenger. They use 924 as their reasoning for the need to love Muhammad more than you love your own family members. I've heard Muslims say it, and I see Shafi, as one of the earliest people to embody that idea, if not the earliest.
Yeah, you see, sometimes they take it to the extreme. For example, Surah Najm, to me, when I look at that, the beginning verses from 1 to 18, I guess, I see it's about Angel Gabriel, Gabriel, that he is the one who actually is bringing the message and conveying to the prophet. However, many people, they call them imams, Imam Shafi, Imam this, Imam that. And they said that it was God himself who came from the heavens all the way down to the earth, and he stayed about 2 bows length, and then he conveyed the message to the prophet. So the God himself came down all the way from the heavens to the earth and stopped about 2 bows length, right? About maybe 3 feet or something like that. And then he فَأَوْحَى إِلَىٰ عَبْدِهِ مَا أَوْحَى, and then he revealed whatever he wanted to reveal or whatever he had to reveal. So I have asked this question to many people. What was that revelation? فَأَوْحَى إِلَىٰ عَبْدِهِ مَا أَوْحَى. This is verse number 10. What was that? Nobody is willing to talk about it. Nobody. They think, it's about the things that he saw in the heavens, and he was just telling him about the miraculous things that he saw in the paradise, and of course the other things also in the hell, and that is what he revealed. So I mean, but I don't see that from the context, right? Similarly, they say that Kaaba was well, if you look at 142, verse 142 of Surah Baqarah, 142, 143, 144, 143, to me it was quite clear that the Kaaba was actually the Qibla. The Qibla was changed twice, not once. However, this is not what I see in the tafsir and from the lectures of the other people. So I have a feeling that many people read the Quran through the lens of the ancient people, Ibn Kasir, Ibn Asir, Razi, so many people, right? They have written books and books and books. Ibn
Worse,
Taymiyyah,
they
right?
read it through modern people's reading of the ancient people. So there's layers upon layers upon layers of, right?
And they don't agree. They
Right.
themselves don't agree at all.
But I saw Khadija had her hand up, so.
We can't hear you,
You're
Khadija.
muted, sister.
Can't hear you.
Change that input.
Yep.
Khadija.
Can you hold on?
There you go.
There it goes.
Yeah,
There.
me now?
yeah.
Nope. Nope.
Some technical problems.
What about now?
There it goes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there
I
you
hear
go.
my
Yeah,
whole
yeah.
house now. Something that has come to my attention. So I'm a believer that the Quran is for all time, for all place, all people. It's not for a specific time. But I've heard people speak about first audiences. Okay. And I didn't quite understand first audiences because I believed that it was for all time and all places. But since we're speaking about the Prophet, peace be upon him, and Jean brought us an example in the example from Surah At-Tawbah. One thing that I noticed is, and please somebody correct me if I'm wrong, that the only way we can actually hurt and harm the Prophet, like using the word adhan, the only way we can harm the Prophet is if we marry one of his ex-wives. Or maybe not the only way, but that is a way that we can hurt him, is by marrying one of his ex-wives. And I haven't found another way that I could potentially hurt him. Now, I know I'm a woman, so I personally wouldn't marry one of his ex-wives, but I don't think any man alive today could marry any of his ex-wives. So that verse, is that truly for the first audience? And if that is the case, then wouldn't the verse that Jean brought in Surah At-Tawbah 9:24 be also for the first audience? Okay.
Jeopardy music playing in the background.
You know, which verse did Jean bring in? I didn't notice it in the chat.
O believers, or say, if your fathers, your sons, your brothers, your wives, your relatives, wealth.
Right. That's the one that I was talking about, that they use to say we need to love the Prophet more than anything else. Could it be to first audiences? Yes. I think you're onto something there. I hadn't thought of it from that perspective. There are other ways to understand it. I merely brought it up because this is the argument that I hear Muslims using to say that, we have to have this excessive love for the Prophet, which again, I see really rooted in Shafi's ideology of, Muhammad was the first thing that God created, and God created all of creation for Muhammad. And I just find that very shirky. I mean, shockingly so.
Well,
but
if Muhammad is the first creation and yet he was around in, 14, like, is he even human at this point?
good question. I mean, but then there's the whole Shiite concept of God created the lights and it was Muhammad and Ali and Fatima and the twin sons, right? So, but these ideas that God created this being that then became a human and was the messenger, that's sort of like the Christian idea of, Jesus, being the first word and then living among us, as a means of deification. Muslims do not take it to the level of deifying Muhammad, but they get really close. A lot of traditional Muslims, I think, get really close to apotheosis, turning Muhammad into a minor deity. They will deny this, of course, because they'll say, no, Muhammad is only a messenger. And that's their excuse for putting that in the Shahada, is to highlight the fact that he's a messenger. But the excessive love is, yeah.
The Shahada is also, and Brother Farouk, I'm so sorry. I think we're hijacking the class
Your
right now.
time, yeah.
But the Shahada is also it's a very complex issue because nobody inserted the Prophet in the Shahada. The Quran has the Shahada of the Prophet, which is the first opening to the chapter of the Munafiqun. And that is what the Munafiqun say, that we witness that Muhammad is the Prophet of God.
Right. And the earliest attestations of the Shahada don't mention Muhammad, and the earliest coins don't, it takes it takes at least 150 years for us to see attestation of Muhammad's name along with God in the Shahada.
But I don't understand, if the Quran was there before all of these hadith people came about. Did nobody read? I mean, we already know that people don't read, but like, how can they just take the Munafiqun Shahada and claim it as the Shahada? Like, we have to.
They usually say, look, since the Munafiqun did it, therefore it is something which is acknowledged. God didn't say your Shahada is wrong. He just said that you are liars. Hence,
right, that they didn't mean it. That's the explanation. They said it, but they didn't truly believe it.
yes, exactly.
Interesting.
Which I think is a cop-out, really, but okay.
Thank you. Okay. Yes, I agree.
So, folks, I don't have very much time. Again, I think we will have to postpone, because there are a few more passages which I need to go through. And I don't think I have the time to do that at this point.
Well, thank you. We can definitely do this again, the same topic next week.
Next week, yes.
But one of the great things about this group, even though we go off on tangents, I think we learn a lot. I know I learn a lot. And I apologize for missing last week. But inshallah, we continue this next week, Farouk. And thank you so much for your patience in allowing the discussion to take these rich and these rich tangents, because I really do find them great food for thought, and give me other questions to dig into later, and this is for all of you youngsters, because I really do feel the arc of time these days. Never think that there will be a time when your understanding of the Quran is so clear and so solid that there's not something for you to learn. I've been reading the Quran in Arabic for literally longer than many of you have been alive, and I'm continually, subhanallah, by the grace of God, seeing things that I never saw before.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I really value these discussions. And Farouk, thank you so much for your patience.
Oh, thank you for your questions there, Dr. Musa. I will take my leave now. Inshallah, see you all next week.
Inshallah. Yeah, we can continue
inshallah.
Next week.
Assalamu alaikum.
You know, Sister Aisha, I want to say something here about hadith, right?
Oh, I think we're still recording, Brother.
Oh, is that a problem?
I thought the class was over.
All right, I'll turn off recording now.
Yeah, you can turn it off if you want to. So